Well, we'll
Get a little
just
proxy going.
do our nicety and turn it over to Chris.
Linda's first live stream.
Yes. Be a movie star now.
Is it time? Because I'm already.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I
like,
got 5:59.
5:59.
I'm not exactly sure if I'm sideways or not.
I took my insulin to supper and sometimes it nosedives in the evening.
Yeah.
So if I grab a candy bar, don't think I'm being rude.
Here, dog.
Yeah.
I can probably actually sit on this.
Nice and warm.
I've not done a live shot in a long time on YouTube, and I think we might be sideways.
There we go.
Here.
We're waiting, Dot's coming in.
I started to say,
Yes,
where's our
yes.
quorum?
Way early.
Yeah.
So,
There's our quorum.
I made it.
All right. Are you ready? So we have the gavel in. We'll call this meeting to order. Lord, we just ask that you be with us tonight and help us make good decisions and be with us and guide our conversations and help us to make the right decisions in your name. Amen.
Amen.
David, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is where we have Chris talk.
Pardon me?
So this is where we turn it over to Chris.
Chris?
Chris is from Northeast Regional Planning.
Good evening.
There's a chair down here.
Good evening.
He's gonna talk to us about the Community Development Block Grant.
Sure. We've kind of been through this process a little bit with some of you guys before, I think, most of you. So, as part of your public hearing, you're announcing your intentions to try to apply for this demolition grant through the Department of Economic Development, Community Development Block Grant Program. So, we've already completed a community needs assessment. You're welcome to update that. You can have discussion about that, and you can do a new one if you choose to, elect to, but, and then offer the public opportunity to address that. It's basically, the program is meant to demonstrate that you prioritize what your needs are, so that you don't go after a project if it's not a high need, by consideration by your community, so.
So, Chris, do we need to select regional planning first before you assist with this, or does it matter?
Honestly, it doesn't matter, I mean,
Okay, because you were the only ones that submitted.
okay, yeah. Technically, it doesn't matter because you're a member of our organization, so, I mean, we look at this as providing you a service to assist you with that process, so, I mean, if there was 5 of those and you selected somebody else, we would still provide this if you requested it of us,
Okay.
so I don't think that matters. But I guess I could answer questions related to that if you wanted us to. Or, I mean, pretty much what we put forward is you want to do a request for a proposal for your the grant writer and the administration for the grant. The grant writing would basically be the equivalent of the application process. So, and then the administration is the post-grant award. It's 100% contingent upon you receiving the grant, so there's no administration if you don't receive a grant. And our proposal basically is standard, we do that with everybody, is we don't charge anything to do the application process. And then we charge an allowable rate based on what they suggest for administration, and that is reimbursed through the grant, it's not reimbursed by the city, so.
Do we know how much of a grant you would
Yeah.
get?
Yes,
We
it's
don't
in
know until we get it's up to $300,000 is the maximum grant amount. We won't know that until we get the number of properties. It'll be based on, we'll get some estimates based on the demolition, projected costs for the number of properties that you have, and then, we'll seek that amount, basically. You're allowed to put a little contingency in there to make sure that you're.
And this was one of those that the homeowner is responsible for $500 per property.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a required $500 contribution per residential property, and there's a 20% for commercial. Yeah, typically that's assessed to the property owner, but, technically it doesn't have to be. I mean, if there was a community betterment group that wanted to assist, or if there was I mean, traditionally it's sought through the property owner.
Okay.
They
So at
kind
the
of
end
want
of
to
the
see
day,
some.
you need $500
Right.
per residential
They-
property from
They
someone.
like to see, that's for the purpose of just making sure that there's kind of some skin in the game. I mean,
Mhm.
you don't want to give everybody a free ride, and, you know, you want to be able to have some participation and some investment on their part, but it's also not meant to be a detriment. That's why they would allow a third party to make a contribution if necessary, so. They don't want to see that holding it up, you know, if there's a property that's needs to come down and you can't get a commitment from the property owner, but there's options there.
How many properties do you think we need, money-wise, do we need to have to?
I have seen, I mean, we've done some that are 70 to 80,000, so I mean, it's not, and that's probably, you know, 8 to 10, so, that's, and I haven't seen them, we haven't worked on any have been turned down because it was too small or anything of that nature. I hesitate to say that, like, you know, as a statement that they would never turn you down if you only had 2 homes or whatever, but we haven't experienced that, so, and I think there was a number, pretty significant number, so.
15 or 16? Or
Yeah,
something?
so I don't think we'll run into that. I was more worried of being on the other end of it, especially if, you know, if you elected to do some commercial. Cause I know there were a few commercial properties that were interested. I don't know if anything transpired there, but, $200,000 your cap if it's solely residential. You can add up to 5 commercial, and then the cap goes up to 300,000, so, obviously, commercial costs
More.
substantially
Yes.
more, yeah, so, you know, that's not a big increase in your volume, but you know, if you're residential or smaller, or, you know, whatever, you have a small number there, you could potentially add. To the best of my understanding and knowledge, there's no, like, ratio or, you know, obviously, I'm assuming that if we came in there with $280,000 in commercial and $20,000 in residential, they're gonna probably red flag that and say, no, this is really this is more, because there are 2 separate ones. You can do just solely commercial, but they have allowed it where you can classify it as residential and still add a few commercials, so.
So how much per house does it normally cost?
We haven't done one for a few years, but it can be anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 is what I've seen. And a lot depends on your contractor, the number of contractors that are bidding. There are some that are, that we work with, that we've seen, that will do some, they do a lot of reclamation. So they actually keep their costs down because they're salvaging metal or materials out of it which is beneficial to everyone because it's not going in the landfill, and so they keep their costs down that way, so. And then, yeah, pretty much what would happen is if, you know, when you go through that application process, we'll identify the properties, we'll do some inspections, and you'll have asbestos inspections, but you'll have generally what you want to do is identify a service provider that can come in and give us some base estimates so that we can you know, again, ensure that we're not way off on our grant application. And then you procure it just like you would, you know, if the city was doing a project, a utility project or whatever, you know, when you have
We
to,
need to get a contract.
yeah, you would go through procurement, and then you would select the service provider, and you actually can do that. You can break it up into units if you wanted to. You could do, you know, groups of properties, where you would have more than one. That way you can bid it kind of as options too, as far as.
What's the deadlines?
They are not established yet, so it's our understanding, so basically, you all worked through this last year, no, not last year, at the end of 2022, trying to get it completed for that physical year. We just ran into too late we were swamped, and you guys had a few things that we felt like we could probably rush through, but we just felt it was a better fit to wait. And then sure enough, when you did that, then CDBG didn't have a grant call last year. With everything that was going on, there was a lot of additional federal money and a lot of additional programming that they were responsible for. So they just felt like it was better to wait than to try to rush everything. So 2023 money is rolling over into 2024. It's our understanding that it's been announced that it's opening in April. We assumed that was gonna be the early part of April, but, and then, because there are fiscal year, 2 years of money, they're gonna extend, you know, normally it's like a 60-day window. I think, what I understood it, they're gonna be like September is gonna be the deadline, so you've got a little bit more time for your application.
And so that's the deadline for you to get it in, or is the deadline for us to take applications to get to you?
That would be, it would be the deadline to get the application submitted, would be September.
Okay.
And again, that's what we've been told.
Yeah, well, I
We
saw
haven't seen
that September date in some of the paperwork from what grant?
Yeah, and they will firm that up once they actually do the official rollout. So.
If we push it farther up, it ain't a deadline though. If we get to September, then it'll be next year before they'll do anything, won't it?
As far as actually getting the construction and getting the demolition done and everything, more than likely, because their award dates, or their award cycle, I anticipate it's gonna take a little longer. Normally, usually you have about a month in there, and then you find out if you got it or not, with this many applications. We're still kind of waiting to see what their policy is going to be, if they're gonna have it like a, not a first come, first serve, but generally when they do this open cycle, they don't score anything until the deadline.
Yeah.
You know, they let everything come in, and then they rank everybody's, and, I have a sense that they're probably gonna try to avoid that, because that, putting 2 years worth of money into the system is gonna put a lot of stress on contractors and communities and things like that. So I kind of feel like they're gonna do, you know, more of a, like, gradual rollout of the programming, but.
Then are we like in a competition with other people of whoever gets pushed in first? Will we be more likely to get it, or?
I have a sense, it depends on how they do that. If they do the first come, first serve, obviously, we would wanna come back and say, hey, it would behoove us to move quicker and to get it done. Otherwise, it's, in a normal cycle, it's not a first come, first serve, it's just based on merit at that point, and they'll score you and rank you based on, a lot of the factors like the income level of your community and, past performance, things of that nature and funding, you know, I mean, if they have enough funding to do all the applications, there'll be some that'll be kicked out just because they're not eligible, they've done something, you know, that's, for instance, if we had a bunch of properties that didn't have clear title or something like that they could identify, then they would probably roll it out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, as far as what their process is gonna be, we've had discussions and we've heard both. You know, we've heard that it's gonna be a kind of a more of a rollout, and then we've heard that it's gonna be just the one-time deadline, and our feeling is it's gonna be a little bit of both. They'll they'll roll some of them out initially because they have that 2 years worth of funding, and so we don't know if they're gonna put like a threshold where, we'll roll out up to the X number of applications, and then we'll stop and just go into the deadline process. It's kind of unique, how they're approaching it, and kind of some of the challenges that go with that as far as,
What kind of qualifications does the property have to have?
it has to be, it can't have been inhabited for at least a year. It has to be determined to be out of compliance with your nuisance ordinance or your unsafe building ordinance. You have to make a determination that it's financially infeasible to repair it. And there's some standards for that. I wanna say there's a square footage rate, and then I apologize, I believe it's $15,000. So anything beyond $15,000, they would deem as not feasible to salvage. But it's either or, so that $15,000 figure would be obviously on lower valued property. If it was a $500,000 home and it needed $15,000 of repair, they wouldn't classify it as infeasible to repair, but, so it's an either or. But most of the properties you're looking at are more than likely gonna fall into that, so, or you can make a strong argument to that, but yeah, you pretty much will just want to, I know you all worked on this, but pretty much you just wanna try to identify any properties that are not in compliance, with your ordinance, and, most communities, have a battle with that. It's not, we're in the process. We'll probably wanna talk to you guys at some point on that. We've considered creating that type of position and offering it kind of very similar to like and I don't know if they still even have this, but they used to have, like the health department used to have a health inspector, and they would work for each member community. We've kind of looked at the possibility of offering a code enforcement type position to where it would work with any member that wanted to participate, kind of allow you to do a co-op kind of approach to it, because it's very difficult to hire somebody full-time in that capacity for a small town. Usually falls upon law enforcement, and they've got a lot on their plates, so we've discussed that possibility of kind of allowing all the small towns to come together and make a financial contribution that would be far below what you'd have to pay a full-time person, but jointly that would allow the payment of a full-time person that could do that. And then also would allow the communities to kind of potentially establish like a governing, not governing board, but an advisory board, so that you all could share within each community how you're handling these situations, and kind of come up with a uniform. I mean, obviously you have ordinances, and most of the communities are gonna have similar ordinances, but just coming up with plans to address it, and trying to avoid being arbitrary in how you enforce it, and it's also really difficult to enforce for people that live within the community. So we kind of felt like this would create some insulation there, to where it's, that the person could do their job and not, do what they're supposed to do, follow the rules, follow the ordinances, and follow the laws, and not have to worry about, bumping into somebody at the grocery store or whatever. And again, it's not meant to be punitive or anything of that nature. It's just pretty much to try to enforce your ordinances and make them aware that they're out of compliance, and hopefully generate some movement into rectifying that. Apologize, that's totally off topic, but but anyway, that's what your process would include would be identifying those properties that are out of compliance with your nuisance ordinance, making a list. I believe you've already done a lot of that, and then making contact with those individuals, making them aware of this program, see if they would like to participate, encouraging them to get their title check done and completed, So, because they do have to have a clear title on the property. That is a problem that a lot of these projects run into, is you have a lot of property that maybe has passed through probate or whatever, and, so, may have a sense that it's John's property, but, when it comes to, and he wants to do it, but then when it comes down to the time to do it, well, it's technically partially John's, and it's also his brothers and his sisters, and they live,
Already ran into one of them.
right, they live in Washington or wherever, yeah, so. So, yeah, there'll be some of that, but, that's hopefully what this process can do is, make them aware of that, and they'll hopefully have enough time to resolve that and review that, and it has to be, no lien or anything like that on the property as well, so you'll have to, that's a responsibility of the property owner to ensure that there's a clear title. They have to demonstrate that. So, trying to think what other property related information, that there's a consent form that I know that they've been working with some of the property owners to get that signed. But yeah, pretty much that would be your,
Is there another form that they need to sign about the committing to the $500? Cause that's not on the consent form.
yeah, I think they have to make there has to be a declarative financial statement or a check or, to that effect. But it has to be, the word is eluding me now, it has to be verifiable that it's available. I mean, it can't just be, hey, we'll
Do
pay
we
it.
need to make up a form on our own?
I know, we'll get you, we can get that information. There's pretty much all of these things have a kind of a template for most all of it, so it's just creating a city-specific form for that, utilizing that template. But yeah, I mean, basically to launch it would be to make people aware of it, and you guys kind of make your own list of properties that, the city feels like should be considering participating, and then having some public outreach to them, either, a letter or whatever, and making them aware of it, and then we kind of establish a cutoff date for when those properties could participate, and you get somebody in here to give us a price estimate, and then we can put that into the application, submit it, and find out if you received it or not, and then once you get approved, then you go into the actual procurement to do you'll have to do a procurement for asbestos inspection and removal, and then demolition as well, and there's demolition inspection that's required also. But the good part is there's not most CDBG's 80-20, where, the city has to pay, but this is pretty much, it's all on the responsibility of the property owner, so there wouldn't be any financial commitment on the city's part. Other than if there was somebody that didn't have the match or whatever, and the city, was desperate enough to, we gotta get that building down. We've had that happen a lot. I mean, there's been communities that have done that.
I don't know, any questions?
I guess probably we would wanna address the needs assessment then. I mean, I don't know if you have a copy of the previous one, or if you just have a blank one, cause
The blank one.
okay, I can,
I said,
Yeah.
to Cindy, one that was completed, but I didn't get that. So they got a blank one. I finished on it.
here is one copy. Now I have a couple here. There's another copy, the third one, I don't know if they would share these, or,
Yeah, and, or I can get some more.
yeah, if they each went into one side.
I think I Well, this is what they did before, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's the completed one that we've already.
And
Same thing
you've got
again.
the clipboard, do you
Yeah,
want
it
everybody
just shows
here
what
that-
Yeah,
It
we
just
can
shows
do that.
our.
What
Not
they-
just for
Yeah,
everybody.
yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
okay.
And if any of them want a copy of that too, I guess we could make a. I think, I know the board's changed a little bit, but how many of you all participated in this the last time we did that? Was it?
Everybody.
I was gonna say, okay, I think so,
Yeah.
so you're familiar with it?
Except the mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, just for public knowledge and everything, the community needs assessment, it's just it's a list of your services and facilities within your community that you have, that you offer, for instance, stormwater, sewer, water, things of that nature. And it's basically just asking for, input as far as how you feel as a community, if, you know, if it's poor, if it's adequate, or it's good. And you wanna be honest when you complete it, because, you know, you don't wanna let your pride get in the way of saying something's not good if it's not good. You obviously also wanna be honest, you don't wanna just run everything down just because you're mad or whatever, so, the city's been through that process before, so they have an existing needs assessment in place, and it allows you to prioritize, what you think our community needs, and so that you make sure that you, when you're going after these types of grants, that you're not going after something that's not a true priority for your community. So.
Cool.
What we did.
When you filled one out.
Last
that
time we had
shows.
22 residential and 4 kind of questionable commercial.
No, I got no feeling on that now.
I guess if you guys don't mind looking at them and just see if you see anything, I mean, that was approximately 2 years ago, so I mean.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, probably not anything's, I don't know.
Streets might improve.
Yeah, we have some different projects and we have some different things like that, and. I know it's tough because you know, you're proud of your community, so you don't wanna say something's bad, but you also don't wanna undersell your needs, so. You don't wanna be, hypercritical, but. I'm sure it's just like when I ask my wife if this shirt looks okay, she usually tells me it does, even if it doesn't, so you gotta be careful of that.
Do we need to fill out another one of them, or just be the same?
I would say if you guys see anything that you wanna change on that one, we can, or we could fill out another one if you wanted to, but
I think it's
unless you
all,
got
I
a
think it's all
sense
right.
of, yeah, unless there's a sense that there are major changes in that, and
We
then,
might need to double check that percentage.
yeah,
That
yeah,
hasn't
we'll,
changed.
yeah, that, we'll update the, LMI information and all that, you know. And then I think really honestly, the major component of that is that second page there, you have towards the bottom, your top priority needs for your community. And we'd establish, or in that last process, you'd establish blight removal and removal of dangerous and abandoned structures as the number 1 priority. Daycare was number 2, housing was number 3, streets was 4, and sidewalks was 5. I mean, yeah, if you guys are all right with that, and I don't know if there's anybody in the public that wants to
Anybody
comment on any of the
have any
needs or
questions or
concerns
comments?
or questions about the program or.
The 20% cap on the commercial,
Not too many.
is there a cap on that 20%, or is it just 20% of what the destruction is going, what it's gonna cost?
Well, yeah, it'd be 20% of the bid for the property removal.
And so the homeowners, this is all voluntary for them as
Yes,
well, is that
yes, sir.
correct?
Yeah.
So if they don't wanna participate, we can't,
Can't make them.
Right.
No.
I mean, technically, if they're out of compliance with your nuisance ordinance, they're at risk of being cited for that or whatever. But yeah, you don't, you're not taking a punitive approach to where you're forcing anybody to do anything. And the property does, you can't, the property does, remain in the owners, in their ownership, so.
Right.
It's 20% commercial, residential is $500.
Right.
Yeah.
but, so that's 20%, no matter whatever the bid is, it's 20%.
Yeah, if it's $100,000 bid, it's $20,000.
Right.
Or if it's $10,000, it's $2,000, yeah.
So is there money in this for restructuring, refurbishing?
Not in this particular
Not in
one,
this
they have some opportunities where you can do some rehab. I mean, there's separate types of programming that you could potentially look at. If you could identify like sections of the town that would be, meet certain criteria, they do have potential to do some rehabilitation projects. I know. some of the-
Historical sites and whatnot?
I'm sorry?
Historical sites and
No,
whatnot?
it would be residential, it would be, basically, older facilities that are inhabited, that, may be lacking and, may need a new roof, or may need new siding, or may
Right.
need new windows. It's based on the income level, of the neighborhood or the area that you establish. We've worked on a few of those. I'm not real,
That's not your,
yeah,
That's not
but
your
we
cup of
could, I mean, if there was interest there, we'd definitely be open to talking to you and, kind of establishing what those guidelines are. But that's, my history with it has been, it's been based on, the income level of the community, and you have to kind of, you identify, for lack of a better explanation or analogy, you would draw a square around 3 blocks of your community that might meet the income standards, or might have the percentage of housing units within it that meet their standards, and then you would make this eligible to them. And I apologize, I don't know the dollar figure
Right,
as far as what that goes, but
and that's still a voluntary deal, right?
yes, sir.
Meaning
Yeah,
you gotta get them on board with it.
right, absolutely, yeah.
Gotcha.
And I know we've had some communities utilize that, in the past. And I guess I should clarify that has been a program. I shouldn't say that it still is.
I
I would
gotcha.
want to verify that, but I know Memphis had it. When I was on the city council in Memphis, I know that we did a housing rehab there, so. And there are programs that, we can work with you all to try to identify future use for these. I mean, that's one thing, is to get them cleaned up, but the next thing, as far as, hopefully, your guys' interest would be to put something in there that creates a tax base that helps, create revenue for the city to provide your services and stuff like that. So, there's some housing programs that are out there, that, could potentially be a viable option to try to promote something going back in these lots.
Right.
Anybody else have any more questions? Les?
If you go over, you got a $200,000 residential grant and a $100,000 commercial for a $300,000 cap, is the way I understand it. So if we have more properties that apply, if we have more demolition that can be done with the 200,000 for residential, or the 300,000 including commercial, how do you decide who gets the opportunity to have their property cleaned up? And then also, would that be prorated to allow everybody that applied to put more money in and clean up all the properties that were submitted? Or how do you decide who gets the property cleaned up?
I think ultimately the city makes that decision based on, internal prioritization as far as the level of property condition. I don't know that there is a prohibition that, as long as you're not exceeding the $300,000 in grant revenue, I don't think there's any prohibition to where you, if the final bid was 400,000, and we had $300,000 in grant, and then, $25,000 in contributions from the property owners. If there was a good Samaritan that wanted to help clean up the town and they wanted to write a check, I don't know that there would be any prohibition against moving forward in that fashion. I would want to verify, look into it a little deeper as far as how the properties are prioritized. We would definitely get CDBG guidance on that to make sure that we're not falsely eliminating or precluding anybody from participating, or, we don't want to come back that, why'd you tear his house down and not hers, and get into a legal battle or something like that effect, so.
Well, if it was, will that move your score up? If you have more money contributed from outside, or will that raise your score to make it more likely to get this grant?
Right. Every project that I've worked with CDBG, the contribution side is, they've eliminated that scoring bonus. They're moving away from that in most of these programs, because it used to be that way, like a lot of programs would, if you had a higher contribution, you got higher points, but they've kind of established that it's not very fair to the communities that are of true need, because they wouldn't need this funding if they had, so the communities that are able to contribute more could theoretically just pay for it themselves. So they used to do that, which makes sense to me, but I also see it, from that argument too, that that's kind of counterproductive to the, then the communities that can afford it are getting this grant money, and the ones that need it can't get it. So they pretty much eliminated that from the consideration for school.
So who makes the final call on what qualifies and what doesn't?
As far as property, or as far as the application, or the grant?
As far as property that is deemed, is that the?
Yeah, there's a demolition inspector that has to inspect each property. There's some standards, like we were just talking, like it has to be uninhabited for a year, so we'll need to be able to verify that. That's generally not too hard to do, but it's usually utilities or something. You can show that there's no utilities there or whatever. And then there is that feasibility of rehab, so they're not gonna tear down something that, could be fixed up with a coat of paint and stuff like that. And that would be that there's a demolition inspector that's employed by this process.
I have a question. I think this is more for the city. What is the motivation on all of this? What is the fine for being a dangerous and dilapidated building? I know we had one a few years back when we had that 101 North Main. Was it $200 a day?
It was something like that, or 500 a day, a max, I believe.
I
I don't remember the exact amount.
It was like $42,000 worth of fines this woman had for having that dangerous and dilapidated building, which had been decided in court. I mean, it wasn't a situation where you can say this is dangerous and dilapidated and you're starting fine today. I mean, it went through the court process. Is that motivation for people to participate in the program, as far as the threat of facing exorbitant fines for not taking care of their property?
Well, I would never want to say it's a threat, but I mean, it's a responsibility for, all of us to keep our property up to code. So, and their awareness of the fact that, hey, if my property's out of code, I run the risk of being ticketed is, that's a weight on every resident's shoulders, to understand that. And, I guess, if you're asking, each individual, the knowledge of that, I would think, would be a motivation to at least consider this. It's like, hey, I can't afford to tear this down on my own, and if I don't tear it down, I run the risk of getting a ticket because it's out of compliance, it's only getting worse. I would think that would be a, I don't know, whatever.
Kind of a
hope they don't ever
factor
consider it a threat or but it's just I hope they see it as an opportunity. I'm kind of caught underneath this thing and it's falling down on top of me, and if I don't get some help, it's just gonna get worse, and so hopefully they'll see this as a chance. And then ultimately, they end up with a clean lot, and hopefully that'll have some value to them to where they can, you know, if they're interested in rebuilding, they can, or if they're, you know, it should be more valuable to them as a clean lot than, you know, trying to sell it and having the responsibility of cleaning it up, so.
Are there any restrictions on selling a if you participate in this program and you increase the property value by removing a dilapidated building and then turn around and sell it for more than it would have been worth with the building on it? Is there any kind of restriction from doing that? Is there any?
Not that I'm aware of, but we would definitely wanna make sure, you know, we would wanna make sure that is made available to the property owner so that they don't make any, you know, rash decisions to that effect that, hey, this is great, cause I know a guy will buy it, you know, that'll buy this for 15,000 if we get this done. I don't, not that I'm aware of, but yeah, we definitely wanna make sure of that, so. I haven't worked through one of these particular programs for on the demolition side. We have staff that have, we kind of juggle. So we work, kind of on call, whatever comes out of the window next, you grab it and take it. And so this one's, we've been working on, so, but I know Marla on our staff's worked through one, so, it's nice to be able to have somebody in the office and say, hey, this question came up. You know, the manual's only like 397 pages, so, and I have read it, but I haven't memorized it yet, so, but yeah, definitely reach out to her, say, hey, did this question ever come up, and she can.
Any other questions?
So have they completed the community needs assessment?
Yeah, I think that would be like, if you guys would, probably want to put that in your minutes somehow, that you reviewed the existing and approved it, or if you want to make some, you know, changes or whatever, but just have that, because we will need a copy of the minutes of the meeting, of the hearing to put with the, that's kind of the side of the administration that's a little nerve-wracking for everybody, is the documentation. We'll have a 6-inch ring binder that will be stacked full of, like, we have to have a picture of your notice, and we'll have to have a affidavit of publication for, you know, any notices you do and things of that nature, so.
Do we have a motion to approve the community needs assessments, and they will update our percentage of low and moderate income persons? So
Make a motion.
Get a second?
Second.
Then motioned and seconded, all in favor? Or any discussion on it that we need?
Was it
I think it was Rick first,
Yeah.
to be
Rick.
honest. Second, it was David and Rick.
David,
and
first
Rick.
one, Rick, second one.
All in favor of approving it with the updated income? Are we all in favor of the needs assessment as is?
Yes.
Six,
Ayes.
all in
Aye.
favor?
5 ayes, no nays?
Motion carried.
Would you recommend us pushing more for, like, we have a lot of problems with buildings uptown.
You can do a separate commercial, so, I guess, you know, if you identified, I guess it depends on what your measurement is, you know, I mean, if you feel like you have more than 5, or you have 5 that are gonna be $500,000, you know, I mean, if you have a sense of that
Well, we got
would,
like 2.
right?
I don't know if they'd kick it. I mean, it'd be more likely we can go ahead and get the housing done if we don't push toward the buildings, or we can,
I don't have a sense that they're really gonna, they don't operate the same way we do. I mean, I mean, we would look at that, we
Yeah.
would say, we could maybe, typically what my sense of it is they don't do that. I mean, as long as you're within, if you're not over $300,000, they're not really gonna dive that deep into it, and, yeah, I don't have a sense that they're gonna say, again, like say, if we put 2 houses and 2 commercial in a residential application, and you had $10,000 in residential and 290 in commercial, I would not be surprised if they red flag that, but if you did $80,000 in residential and $220,000 in commercial, we have a strong argument that, hey, that's all the residential that we had that would participate. These 2 commercial have been a hindrance forever, and we need to get them done. And if you have a narrative in your application that you can state your case.
So that, and so we have to go and have it inspected again, since we've already done it once. You know, if we get a building that comes up, like for asbestos and stuff like that, do we have to follow that process again? If we get approved for a big building or?
I don't believe you would have, I don't know why the asbestos inspection would change, but I can't give an authoritative answer to
Gotcha.
that. I mean, it's
Gotcha.
like, if an inspection lasts for, 2 years, I mean, I'm sure the Asbestos Inspectors Association has as short a cap on that as they can, so
Right.
they can get more business, but I don't have any knowledge of it, of like why it wouldn't apply,
Okay.
if you did it 2 or 3 years ago, why it wouldn't
It
continue.
ain't going nowhere.
Right, and if it had asbestos, it still has it, and if it didn't have it, it shouldn't have grown any,
Right.
so, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, it wouldn't, but I would not be shocked if they said, yeah, those are only good for 30
Yeah.
days or whatever either, so, I mean, if they have a good lobbyist, I mean,
That's our law.
right, yeah, no, I get that totally, so, but to the best of my knowledge, that would not be the case, so if there are some existing inspections that are already completed, and the demolition inspection is not, it's not excessively difficult, so I mean, it's not a engineer requirement, I mean, it's more of a,
Somebody's done it.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, we've done them, it's pretty much a checklist, so it's just somebody that's, outside of the program, just to kind of create that, separation of, so that I really want this house on there, I'm gonna check these, you kind of try to eliminate that, so, but, when you have somebody that's not associated with the program, that's willing to sign their name to it, saying, yes, I visited that site and it had these problems, or it didn't, and so it's not as, it sounds pretty authoritative, but it's not that, not that difficult. The asbestos is certified, and you would have to procure for that and everything, and there are some specific DNR guidelines that we'd have to.
Is there anything else you need us?
Nope, I'll actually leave that with you, and then I'll just get that, if that's all right, I'll get the copy of the sign in and the, in your minutes when you're done with them. We obviously don't,
Okay.
well, and
And did you bring something I've got to post for them?
yes, I left you a housing
Okay.
poster up there.
Okay.
I think actually I looked and you have one, so I must have sent it to you before you printed it and put it up, so. I brought you a
I
color,
had,
I brought you a color one, so you can put it up there.
okay, yeah, I was gonna say, I put one up and then I emailed it.
Yes, so I think
Texted
that's,
it to you or
yeah.
something.
so basically this program is funded through HUD, CDBG is funded through, federal housing, and so some of their restrictions or requirements are related to just, ensuring that you don't have, that you're, no discrimination in housing and things like that, so and you're just continuing to educate your community and your public, to that effect, and, some of the requirements include something as simple as just posting their poster, saying that we don't discriminate, and when you're seeking housing, our community doesn't allow it. If you have problems, let us know, and so there are a lot of things like that I'm sure Margaret loves, that, hey, when you're procuring for this, you're sending it to 37 people. If you're mailing it, you have to take a picture of each envelope that you're mailing to them to show that you mailed it to them, and that's why we have the ring binder at the end with all these documents and that's just pretty much when you close it out, they just,
I didn't realize it was HUD.
yeah.
It's HUD that you're turning this all into?
Yeah,
That makes sense now. 6-inch binder makes total sense.
Okay, well, you guys have a regular meeting?
Yeah. we
Oh,
gotta
good
approve
luck.
on
Sorry, I
that.
didn't mean to take up some
Oh,
time.
no,
I think
you're
this was
fine.
it,
Thank you.
so, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes. Is that all right? We grab that from you later?
Yeah,
You want me to take it?
later as in sometime you'll stop by.
Yeah,
or-
well, either or, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you don't mind, just
Oh, yeah.
stick these
Yeah.
things in the
I'll-
folder and I'll grab them.
Just saying.
If I
And
need it,
it's,
if I need it, I'll call it. Send it to me if I can't get it.
Okay. Yep, that'll work.
Okay.
Okay, so now we need to discuss the Miller Park improvements and use of the ARPA funds.
I guess the concrete's done, right?
Roger,
Roger,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
do you wanna join us, sir?
So here's a copy of the bill. Yeah, which I sent my
just wanted to see.
see is here now.
And I thought that.
Excuse me. Well, if we turn it on, well, then nobody will be able to hear the roar over, you know, it goes live stream. And the other thing is, you know, this little thing's a lot much faster.
Okay. So we need to get a motion to pay the snelling?
Yeah, but of course, note that we took bids and that was our bid, 38,100 of our
There's two of
funds.
them gone
That
now.
one is gone. Well, that one
So the extra sidewalk there
was
Yeah.
what
went
we
from-
actually owe.
He
He
did.
took over the property.
What do
Was
we
that,
owe?
was that the handicap, that was a handicap, right? That was a handicap access to the
From the basketball
basketball
place.
court. Yeah,
The lady that owned it.
Except you needed to vote on that.
Yeah,
okay.
We still need to do more.
I don't know if we got enough to do more, cause by the time we get new basketball hoops, we're gonna be out of money.
Well, I think this was a good thing for the handicap, so, you know,
We can do
access to that.
Yeah. But with this,
But the handicap that they were talking about was 1104.
yeah,
One thing I would forget about that, somebody having access to.
Yeah.
To something, so, works out, so what do you recommend we do?
so do we, this total amount, is that we need approval to take down that, or have we already paid?
Do we need approval to pay this extra?
Yeah, well, you need approval, first of all, just to pay the 38,000 because, he had to complete the work
Right,
and then,
make the
you
motion.
needed,
Okay,
you need
got
to
a
vote on
motion,
that to approve that.
got a motion.
I make the motion to pay the 38,000.
David,
And
Stacy?
Stacy?
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor, motion
Aye.
carried. Okay, now we need a motion to approve the $1,104 for the extra
I make a
sidewalk.
motion to pay the add on the sidewalk for the handicap getting into the ball court,
So,
$1,104.
is this David?
You, David, and then Rick.
And are we taking this out of ARPA funds?
We have money left, yes, ma'am.
Do we have the money?
And David, and what'd you say, Rick, second?
Yes.
And this is 1,000 and
104.
104, and it's out of the ARPA funds.
You know exactly how much we have left in there.
All in favor of
Yeah.
paying the $1,104?
Make the motion.
So then,
We didn't get the rock bill and all that yet, see what.
1,100.
You get quote on that basketball hoops?
Kids could do that today.
Got all that.
Kids could do that today.
Yeah.
Just-
So,
Okay,
about 9,603 left
Left
in
on the ARPA fund.
ARPA.
Yeah.
And of course, course, there's nothing required that you decide tonight how to spend that money.
Because that's what the equipment's out of there.
That's what,
Playground.
yeah, there was 63,000
Right.
left, and then the playground equipment was 11,000 and whatever,
Mhm.
and then Snelling's was 38,000. The rock and hauling was 3,000, and then this extra 1,000 to Snelling's, then left a balance of $9,603.78.
Roger, have you been able to get any bids on the basketball hoops yet?
Yeah, 4 of them is, 91, 96.
Okay,
And
so
that's
4 hoops.
Probably the cheapest ones they have.
As,
Where's them coming from?
I'd have to look on, I'd have to look.
where's my-
That's,
Hold
4,
on.
I'll
So
show you
that'll-
what they are.
Pretty much.
So that'll take care of it.
Okay, yeah, I think we're good.
So we're good,
Oh,
Do we need a motion to
except for
approve
the
the
little swing
or no?
Yeah.
seats for the whatever, but
Do we have a motion for Roger to go ahead and procure the 4 basketball hoops?
I'll make that motion.
okay, Dot.
Do we have a second?
And how much did you say, 9,196?
yeah, unless,
And there'll be some freight maybe, so,
That's only 4 of them, or that's 6 of them?
that's 4 of them. That's one for each end of the new cement and one across from each other, yeah. And the ones that's extra down there, we're gonna rebuild them, paint them.
that'll be some that the kids
Put them
won't
up.
bend or whatever.
Yes, ma'am. We're gonna fix their ones they can bend still. We're gonna have the low one like they always have.
Yeah,
They can still play on, we're just gonna put it in a different place.
okay.
Well, we could put cameras down there to surveillance that too.
That would be a good idea when I
That would
know
help.
application.
Demolition of all this money.
Let's see, so Dot made
Do
the
we have a
motion.
second for the ordering of the basketball hoops?
Second.
Delmer?
All in favor? Motion carried.
Great.
Is that all we had to do?
I think so, except, well, Stacy's here, but.
You need to swear her in.
That would be good. I mean, we can adjourn and then swear her in, or
This is she.
vice versa.
Oh, hi.
I'll go ahead and swear her in.
Let me show you. 17, 28, 23, 2000, 23, 15, 5, 22, 28.
And you're building the shop?
Would you
I'm
like
gonna
to
build 3 of them in the shop.
stand someplace? Someplace official looking?
So, yeah.
I stamped the photo of the last one.
That's Sandy.
Oh, yeah, you did,
Hang on
didn't you?
That's because Echo wasn't here.
Maybe by the flag.
Here's your pen.
I'm just telling you what I thought.
Actually, I just want you to have it. This is your.
That's 4 of them.
Look at on the other side.
Do you solemnly swear that you possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office that you've been elected, that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Missouri, the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of the 4th class, and the ordinances of the city of Edina, and will faithfully demean yourself while in office? I do. All right, great, congratulations.
Okay,
This size deal.
yes.
Totally has to be with the bigs.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Can I make the motion to adjourn?
David
I'll second.
and Rick.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are done.
Congratulations. I haven't seen you forever and you're doing a great job,
Oh,
so
well.
Hold on, I don't.
I was very
First
curious.
line.
Nobody can hear.